My wife became a doctor and asked for a divorce on the exact same day. 3 years later, she found me through medical records. I had 200 missed calls from her. My wife became a doctor and celebrated by asking for a divorce on the same day. I signed without arguing and disappeared completely. 8 years. That is the time I spent building someone else's dream while mine gathered dust in a corner. 8 years working double shifts to pay her medical school tuition. 8 years of frozen dinners because she was always studying. 8 years of canceled vacations because she had to focus on her exams. 8 years of hearing, "Once I graduate, everything will be different." The graduation ceremony was on a Thursday in May. I had requested a day off from my construction management job specifically to attend. I had even bought a new shirt for the occasion. After all, it was supposed to be our moment, our success, our future finally beginning. I was sitting in that crowded university auditorium watching her walk across the stage. When they called her name, I stood up and cheered louder than anyone. 8 years of sacrifice had finally paid off. At least, that is what I thought. The ceremony ended around noon. Families were taking pictures, celebrating, and planning dinners at local restaurants. I waited near our sedan in the parking garage while she posed with her classmates, that degree clutched in her hands like a golden ticket. When she finally approached me, I expected a hug, a kiss, maybe even a thank you. Instead, she handed me a craft envelope. "What is this?" I asked. "Divorce papers," she said, as if she were talking about the weather. I already signed my part. I stared at the envelope, then at her. She was not joking. There was no emotion in her eyes, no hesitation in her voice. This was not an impulsive decision. It was planned. "Are you serious right now?" "As serious as ever." "Listen, Jacob, I don't need you anymore. I have my degree. I have job offers. I have a future. You were useful during school, but this chapter of my life is over." Useful. 8 years of my life reduced to a single word. Useful. So what was I to her? Some kind of financial aid program that came with household chores. She shrugged. "You knew what you were getting into." I was clear about my priorities from day one. Medical school came first. Now, I am a doctor, and I want to start fresh without any dead weight. Dead weight. That is what 8 years of marriage meant to her. Dead weight. Her colleagues were starting to gather around us, probably wondering what this intense conversation was about. Some of them I recognized from the rare social events I had attended over the years. They all knew I was the husband working overtime to pay their friends' tuition. I opened the envelope and skimmed the papers. Everything was already filled out. She had divided our assets, claimed the car she wanted, and even listed the apartment as solely hers since she would soon be earning a doctor's salary. I was getting nothing but the legal minimum. "You really thought this all through, huh?" "I'm not stupid. I know what I want." I looked around at her classmates watching us, the family celebrating nearby. The woman I had supported for 8 years was now tossing me aside like a used textbook. Then I did something that surprised everyone, especially her. I took a pen out of my jacket pocket and signed every page without reading the rest, right there in the parking garage in front of her medical school colleagues. I ended our marriage with the same casualness she had used to start this conversation. "There you go," I said, handing the papers back to her. "Congratulations on your degree and your divorce." Her mouth dropped open. She was expecting drama, begging, maybe even anger. What she got was efficient cooperation. "Wait, that's it. You're not going to fight for this. Try to talk me out of it." Why would I fight for someone who just called me dead weight? I turned and walked away from the car, leaving her there with her degree in one hand and our signed divorce papers in the other. Behind me, I could hear her colleagues start to whisper among themselves. I did not turn back. I did not raise my voice. I did not make a scene. I simply walked out of that parking garage and out of her life completely. The last thing I heard as I turned the corner was one of her classmates asking, "Who was that guy? And why did he just walk away from his own car?" I kept walking. She wanted to start fresh without dead weight. Perfect. She was going to find out exactly how much that dead weight had been holding up all these years. 3 days after the graduation parking garage incident, I had vanished not just from the apartment, but from the entire state. While she was probably expecting me to come crawling back with apologies and flowers, I was executing the most complete disappearance of my life. The beauty of being married to someone who never paid attention to our finances is that she had no idea what I actually controlled. She thought she was getting the apartment because she was going to earn a doctor's salary. What she did not know was that I had been paying the rent from my personal account for the last 2 years, not our joint account. The lease was solely in my name. I spent those 3 days liquidating everything that mattered. I closed our joint bank accounts and transferred my half to a new bank she had never heard of. I canceled the utilities that were in my name. I ported my phone number to a new carrier. I even canceled the Netflix subscription she loved so much. On Saturday morning, I was loading my pickup truck with everything I truly cared about: clothes, my tools, my grandmother's china that she never appreciated anyway, and my vintage vinyl record collection she always complained about taking up space. Portland, Oregon, became my destination. Not because I had ties there, but because I did not. A clean slate in a city where no one knew my history and where no one would think to look for me. The apartment I found was nothing extraordinary. A one-bedroom 15 minutes from downtown with a view of a parking lot instead of the city skyline she had always desired. But it was mine, completely, legally, and financially mine. Finding a job took less than a week. Construction management for a mid-sized company specializing in commercial buildings. The pay was decent, the hours were reasonable, and no one asked questions about my personal life. Perfect. Meanwhile, back in our old city, she was discovering the reality of her fresh start. The first sign of trouble came when she tried to pay the rent. Turns out the landlord does not accept "I'm going to be a doctor" as legal tender. When the power was cut off 3 days later, followed by the internet, she finally understood that I had not been dead weight. After all, I had been the foundation. The text messages started the first week. "We need to talk. This is ridiculous. You can't just disappear." I saw them come in and deleted them without reading past the preview. The calls started the second week, 27 calls in one day. I let them all go to voicemail, then I deleted the messages without listening to them. If she had something important to say, she could say it through her lawyer. By the third week, she contacted my old coworkers to get my new contact information. My old supervisor called to warn me that a frantic woman claiming to be my wife had shown up at the office. I thanked him for the heads up and told him I did not have a wife. The second month brought true panic. She had apparently tried to use me as a reference for an apartment application, only to find out my old phone number was disconnected. She reached out to my sister, my parents, even my old college roommate. Every single one of them got the same message from me. I don't know anyone by that name. The most desperate move came in the third month. She somehow tracked down my new employer and called the main office, claiming there was a family emergency. My boss took the message and passed it on to me. I told him the truth. I did not have a family emergency because I had no family by that name. He understood completely and quietly flagged her number in their system. What she did not realize was how much I was enjoying my new life. Portland suited me. The coffee was better, people minded their own business, and no one expected me to sacrifice my present for someone else's future. I joined a hiking group that met every weekend. I started taking evening classes in project management. I even started dating again. Nothing serious, just rediscovering what it felt like to have conversations that did not revolve around medical school stress and study schedules. The woman I met in a bookstore cafe was everything my ex-wife was not. Leah had her own career as a graphic designer, paid for her own meals, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and opinions. When I told her I had recently divorced, she simply nodded and said, "Good for you for knowing when to leave." No drama, no analysis of what went wrong, no suggestions for therapy or second chances, just the acceptance that sometimes marriages end and moving on is the healthiest option. By the 6th month, I had stopped checking if Madison had tried to contact me. I had built a routine that had nothing to do with her schedule, her preferences, or her needs. Wake up at 6 a.m., coffee while reading the news, work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., gym or hike after work, dinner with friends, or a quiet night at home reading. Simple, peaceful. The irony was not lost on me. While she was probably telling her colleagues about her fresh start as a single doctor, I was the one truly living it. Fresh, with no dead weight to slow me down, no one treating my contributions as temporary commodities. She wanted to start over with a clean slate. I had given her exactly that, plus something she had not anticipated, a completely blank slate right where I used to be. 3 years into my new life in Portland, I was living better than I had during the entire 8 years of my marriage. What I did not know was that 3 years into her medical career, Madison was discovering that reality has a sense of humor. I found out later through a mutual acquaintance who could not resist sharing the gossip. Apparently, her fresh start had not gone as planned. Turns out becoming a new doctor is not the instant wealth and prestige she had imagined. Her starting salary as a resident was barely higher than what I was making in construction. Except now, she had six-figure student debt weighing on her shoulders, a debt that used to be our problem when she needed my signature for consolidation loans. The apartment she had claimed in the divorce papers became a financial nightmare within 6 months. Without my income to support the rent, utilities, and groceries, she burned through her savings before her first resident paycheck arrived. She ended up having to take in 2 roommates just to make ends meet. Sharing the space, she was so excited to have all to herself. Those roommates, according to my source, were not impressed when they found out she had divorced her husband immediately after graduation, especially when they realized he was essentially subsidizing the lifestyle she planned to fund with doctor money that was not materializing as fast as expected. Her work schedule was brutal. 80-hour weeks, night shifts, being on call the weekend she had planned to enjoy her new freedom. The social life she had envisioned as a successful single doctor turned into napping between shifts and surviving on hospital cafeteria food and energy drinks. Meanwhile, I was thriving. The construction company where I had been hired had promoted me to senior project manager. My salary had increased significantly, and I was managing some of the largest commercial projects in Portland. I bought a small house with a decent backyard. Nothing extraordinary, but completely mine. No shared mortgage payments, no joint financial planning, no need to ask permission for purchases. The hiking group had become a central part of my social circle. Every weekend, rain or shine, we explored different trails around Oregon and Washington. I was in the best shape of my life. I had a solid group of friends, and I felt truly content for the first time in years. The graphic designer I had met, Leah, had become something more serious. We had been together for over a year, taking things slowly and calmly. She appreciated that I did not rush into anything, given my past. It was refreshing to be with someone who contributed equally to our relationship instead of treating me like a financial support system. She had her own house, her own car, and her own savings account. When we went out to dinner, she insisted on splitting the bill. When I cooked at home, she brought wine and dessert. When she cooked at her place, I handled the cleanup and brought flowers. Everything felt balanced and reciprocal. But back to Madison's situation. The breaking point for her apparently came during her second year of residency. She was working a particularly brutal schedule when her car broke down. Major engine trouble that would cost more to fix than the car was worth. In the past, that would have been my problem to solve. I would have handled the financing, negotiated with the mechanics, maybe even borrowed money from family if necessary. Now, she was facing it alone with maxed out credit cards and no savings. She ended up taking public transit for 3 months before finally getting a loan for a used car with payments that ate up a significant chunk of her already tight budget. The whole experience apparently triggered some kind of awakening about what she had lost by getting rid of her dead weight. That is when the real search began. First, she tried social media, but I had deleted all my old accounts and never created new ones under my real name. Then she contacted all the mutual friends we had, but most had picked sides after the divorce, and hers was not winning. She hired a private investigator after 2 years of fruitless searching, even paying him a $920 retainer she could not afford to spend. He found old addresses, previous employers, and even tracked down family members who told him nothing useful. The breakthrough came when she abused her access to medical databases during her 3rd year of residency. It was a serious ethical and legal violation. She had gotten the idea to search through hospital employment records across several states, looking for my name in construction-related job descriptions. Apparently, she figured I would eventually need medical care somewhere, and if I had kept the same type of job, she might find a lead. It was a long shot that should not have worked, but it did. A routine checkup I had gotten through my employer's health insurance had created a record that popped up in her search. The hospital was in Portland, Oregon, and the employment listed was with a large construction company. She had found me. After 3 years of searching, she finally had a general location and enough information to track me down completely. What she did not know was that the man she was looking for had evolved far beyond the person she had thrown away in that graduation parking garage. I was no longer the same guy working double shifts to pay her tuition. I was no longer the man who had accepted being called dead weight and useful. I was someone who had built an entirely new life without her. Someone who had proven that her assessment of my worth was completely wrong. Someone who had moved on so completely that her name rarely crossed my mind anymore. She was going to find out that when you throw away something valuable, you don't get to decide 3 years later that you want it back. The call started on a Tuesday morning in March. My phone showed 17 missed calls from a number I did not recognize. Then the texts started pouring in. Jacob, I know you are getting these messages. We need to talk about what happened. I made a mistake, and I want to fix it. Please call me back. I deleted every single message without reading past the preview. After 3 years of complete silence, I was not interested in whatever crisis had suddenly made her remember my existence. The calls continued for 2 weeks. Different numbers, now probably phones borrowed from colleagues or friends. I blocked each one as soon as I identified the pattern. 17 calls on Tuesday, 23 on Wednesday, 31 on Thursday. She was escalating, growing more desperate with each day of silence. Then she got creative. My work phone rang on a Friday afternoon. I was on-site reviewing blueprints when the main office receptionist called. Hey, Jacob, there's a woman here claiming to be your wife. She says there's a family emergency, and she needs to speak to you immediately. What does she look like? The receptionist described her perfectly. Madison had somehow found my employer and driven all the way to Portland. She was sitting in our lobby right at that moment, probably spinning a tale about urgent medical news or a family crisis. Tell her you couldn't reach me and that I am out of state on a project for the next 2 weeks. Take her contact info and tell her someone will call her back, understood? Do I really have to call her back? No. An hour later, my supervisor called with an update. She had waited in the lobby for 3 hours, repeatedly asking if I had called back or if I had shown up at any different job sites. When it became clear I was not coming, she left her number and a handwritten note. What did the note say? Something about how you two needed to discuss your future together. She seemed pretty upset when she realized we weren't going to help her track you down. Thanks for handling that professionally. No problem. We've all got a past. I'll flag this information in case she comes back. She did not come back to the office, but she found other ways to get noticed. She had apparently spent the weekend driving around Portland, looking for my pickup truck in apartment complexes and restaurant parking lots. A friend from my hiking group called me Sunday night to tell me a woman matching her description had approached him in a coffee shop, claiming to be looking for her husband and showing him a picture on her phone. Man, I didn't tell her anything, but she seemed really determined. She said she had been looking for 3 years. Thanks for the heads up. If she approaches you again, you have never heard of me. Got it. Monday brought a new strategy. She had figured out I lived somewhere in Portland and decided to blanket the city with her search. She posted in neighborhood Facebook groups, on the Nextdoor app, and even on Craigslist in missed connections, all with the same basic message. Looking for my husband, Jacob. We lost touch after my medical residency. Please help me find him. My girlfriend, Leah, showed me one of the posts on Tuesday night. We were cooking dinner at my place when she opened Facebook on her phone. This is weird. A woman is posting in all the Portland groups looking for her husband. She's using a picture that looks like it was taken years ago, and the whole thing sounds desperate. I looked at the post. Sure enough, it was a picture of me from our marriage, probably taken at a dinner I had forgotten. The caption read like something out of a cheesy romance novel, full of regrets and promises to fix things. Sounds like someone who doesn't understand that some bridges can't be rebuilt once they're burned, I said. Leah nodded. The comments are pretty brutal. Most people are telling her that if her husband wanted to be found, he wouldn't have disappeared so completely. She was right. The comments section was filled with people pointing out the obvious. People do not disappear like that without very good reasons. Several women had shared their own stories about exes who had gone no contact, and the consensus was clear. That level of avoidance meant serious damage had been done. Wednesday brought the most desperate move yet. She had somehow gotten my address. I came home from work to find her sitting in her car in front of my house. She had been there long enough to draw the attention of the neighbors, because Mrs. Schmidt from across the street waved at me as I pulled into my driveway. That woman has been parked there since noon, asking everyone who walks by if they know you, she called out. I told her, I have never seen her in my life. Thank you. If she approaches you again, Do not hesitate to call the police for suspicious behavior. I parked in my garage and went in through the side door, avoiding all contact with her car. She knew I was home now, which meant the real confrontation was coming. The doorbell started ringing around 7 p.m. continuous, aggressive rings that lasted for 2 minutes at a time, then knocking, then more ringing. I ignored it all, continuing my normal evening routine with dinner and reading. Around 9 p.m., she started yelling through the door. "Jacob, I know you're in there. I saw your truck in the garage. We need to talk about this like adults. I drove 16 hours to get here. I'm not leaving until you at least listen to me." The neighbors definitely had a show. I could see porch lights flicking on up and down the street. People were probably wondering what kind of drama was playing out in their usually quiet neighborhood. I called the non-emergency police line. "I'd like to report someone trespassing and disturbing the peace at my home. It's my ex-wife, and she has been here for several hours, refusing to leave." The officer who arrived 20 minutes later was professional and efficient. I watched through the window as he spoke to her for about 10 minutes. She was animated, gesturing toward my house, probably explaining her 3-year search and her desperate need to reconnect. He knocked on my door, and I answered. "Sir, the woman claims to be your ex-wife and says she needs to discuss important business with you. Are you willing to speak with her?" "No, we have been divorced for 3 years, and I have no interest in communicating with her. I would like her removed from my property." "Understood. I'll escort her off the premises and explain that she needs to leave you alone." Through the window, I watched as he walked back to her car and had another conversation. This one was clearly firmer, because she got into her car and drove off without looking back at my house. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number 5 minutes later. "The police can't stop me from loving you. I will wait as long as it takes." I took a screenshot of the message and added it to the folder I had started keeping. If this escalated further, I wanted documentation of everything. 3 years of silence followed by 2 weeks of desperation. She had found me, but she was about to learn that finding someone and reconnecting with them are 2 completely different things. She cornered me at Home Depot on a Saturday afternoon. I was loading lumber into my truck for a deck project when I heard her voice behind me. "Jacob, please don't walk away. Just give me 5 minutes." I turned around to find her standing 10 feet away, looking like she had not slept in days. She was thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes and that frantic energy of someone running on pure desperation. 5 minutes. For what? To apologize. To explain. To ask for another chance. I closed the tailgate and faced her completely. "You had 8 years of chances. You used them all up in a parking garage 3 years ago." I was stressed. Medical school was overwhelming, and I said things I didn't mean. I have regretted it every single day since. "Which part do you regret? Calling me dead weight, or finding out that this dead weight was actually keeping your life afloat?" She flinched. "I never should have said those things. I was scared to start my career, and I thought I needed to be completely independent to prove I could succeed as a doctor." "How is that working out for you?" Her jaw tightened. "It has been harder than I expected. The hours, the money, everything. I realize now that I threw away the best thing in my life for a career that isn't what I thought it would be." I leaned against my pickup and crossed my arms. "So let me get this straight. When you thought you were going to be rich and successful, you tossed me aside like garbage. Now that reality has hit and you are struggling, suddenly I am the best thing that ever happened to you." "That's not how it was." "That is exactly how it was. You said it yourself. You didn't need me anymore. I was useful during school, but that chapter was over. Remember?" She looked at the ground. "I was wrong." "Yes, you were wrong about a lot of things. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We had something good before medical school took over everything. We can have that again." I almost laughed. "We never had anything good. I had 8 years of being your personal support system while you chased your dream. You had 8 years of free financial and emotional labor while you set up your career. Those are 2 completely different relationships. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what was fair. You got exactly what you asked for, a fresh start with no dead weight. I got exactly what I deserved after 8 years of being taken for granted, a life where I am valued. I value you. I always valued you. You valued what I provided. There is a difference." She stepped closer, and I saw tears starting to form in her eyes. "I love you. I have always loved you. I just got my priorities mixed up." "No, you didn't get mixed up. You were honest. For the first time in 8 years, you told me exactly what you thought of me and our marriage. The only thing that has changed is your circumstances. People change. I have changed. Really? Or are you just desperate because being an adult is harder than you expected? She stayed silent for a long time. Then she tried a different approach. What can I do to prove that I am different now? Nothing. Because I am different now, too. What do you mean? I mean that I am no longer the same man you threw away 3 years ago. That guy who worked double shifts to pay your bills, he's gone. The guy who accepted being called dead weight and useful, he doesn't exist anymore. You are talking to someone completely different. I don't believe people just become different people. Of course they do, especially when they are forced to rebuild their entire lives from scratch. Do you want to know what I learned these past 3 years? She nodded. I learned that I am pretty good company when I am not constantly worrying about someone else's stress levels. I learned that I have interests and hobbies that don't revolve around medical school schedules. I learned what it feels like to have conversations that don't end with someone complaining about professors, rotations, or board exams. Her face flushed red with every point I made. I learned that when you date someone who has her own career and her own money, relationships become partnerships instead of charity cases. I learned that mutual respect is actually possible when both people contribute equally. You're dating someone? I am engaged to someone. The words hit her like a physical blow. She stepped back and brought her hand to her chest. Engaged for 3 months. We are getting married in September. But we are still married. No, we're not. You divorced me, remember? Papers signed and everything efficiently handled. Actually, I mean we could still, if you wanted, try again. I don't want to try again. I want to keep moving forward with someone who chose me when she had options, not someone who only wants me back because those other options didn't work out. She was crying openly now. This isn't how it was supposed to go. How was it supposed to go? You were supposed to show up after 3 years, apologize for treating me like garbage, and I was supposed to gratefully accept taking you back into my life. Yes. No, I don't know. I just thought that if I could find you and explain. You thought I would be sitting around waiting for you to realize your mistake, as if my life was just on pause until you decided you needed me again. She did not answer, but the look on her face confirmed exactly what she had been thinking. Here is the thing you never understood about me. I don't wait for people to discover my worth. When you threw me away, I took you at your word and moved on completely. The man you are looking for is getting married to someone who appreciated him from day one. I could appreciate you now. Too late. Someone else already does. I opened the door of my truck and got in. She just stood there watching me, probably hoping I would change my mind or offer some kind of hope for a reconciliation. Instead, I rolled down the window and gave her one last piece of advice. Next time you find something valuable, try not to throw it away just because you think you found something better. Most people only get one chance to make that mistake. I drove off, leaving her in the Home Depot parking lot with the same stunned expression she had 3 years earlier when I had signed the divorce papers. The difference was that this time, she understood exactly what she had lost. 2 weeks after the Home Depot encounter, she made one final, desperate move. She showed up at my work again, this time with a different story. She told our receptionist that she was a doctor with urgent medical information about my health that required an immediate discussion. My supervisor called me into his office. Your ex is back. This time she is claiming a medical emergency. Should I call security? Actually, let me handle this personally. I went to the lobby where she was waiting. Still in scrubs from a night shift, probably. She looked even worse than before, like she was surviving on nothing but coffee and false hope. Medical emergency? I asked. I needed to see you. And you thought impersonating a medical professional with urgent health information was the right way to do that? I am a medical professional. You are also a liar. There is no medical emergency, is there? She shook her head, tears starting again. Here is what is going to happen, I said calmly. I am going to give you 2 things, and then this ends forever. I pulled an envelope from my jacket pocket. First, this is a restraining order. Any further contact from you, direct or indirect, becomes a legal matter. That includes showing up at my work, my home, contacting my friends, or creating fake emergencies. Her hands were shaking as she took the envelope. Second, this is for you. I handed her a wedding invitation. My name and Leah's name were printed in elegant calligraphy, along with the September date and venue information in Portland. I want you to understand that I am not just moving on from you. I have already moved on completely. The life I am building has nothing to do with the life we had together. She stared at the invitation as if it might disappear if she blinked. My fiancée knows about you. She knows about our marriage, our divorce, and your recent attempts to reconnect. She is not threatened by you because she understands something you never did. What is that? She whispered. That when someone chooses you every day, instead of just keeping you around until something better comes along, it creates a completely different kind of relationship. Security had arrived and was waiting nearby, probably called by the receptionist when she realized what was happening. These gentlemen are going to escort you to your car. If I ever see you again, if I hear from you again, if you contact anyone in my life again, the next conversation will be with my lawyer and the police. She was crying harder now, clutching the restraining order and the wedding invitation. I know I made mistakes, but this feels cruel. Cruel would be leading you on, letting you think there was hope, or pretending that 3 years of rebuilding my life could be erased with an apology. This is honest. I love you. I know you think you do, but love isn't something you discover when you are desperate. Love is what you nurture when you have choices. Security stepped forward, and she let them guide her toward the exit. At the door, she turned around one last time. Will you ever forgive me? I already did, I said. That is why I was able to move on completely. She left, and I never saw her again. 6 months later, I married Leah in a small ceremony surrounded by the people who had helped me build a new life from scratch. During my vows, I promised to choose her every day, not just when it is convenient. She promised the same in return. Sometimes, the best outcome is not about getting even. It is about living so well that the people who threw you away realize they gave up something irreplaceable. My ex-wife wanted a fresh start without dead weight. I gave her exactly that, and in the process, I built something better than anything we had ever had together. She got what she asked for. I got what I deserved. We were both finally free. Comment. What a powerful reminder of how important it is to know your own worth. Your value is never defined by someone else's inability to see it. Setting boundaries isn't an act of aggression. It's an act of self-preservation. You can be kind and supportive while still protecting your own peace. True healing doesn't come from getting even. It comes from building a life so full that the past no longer has power over you. I really want this to be a reminder that you are the primary architect of your own happiness. Sometimes, a true fresh start requires you to close a door completely, not just leave it cracked open. Whatever you are going through, I hope you always choose the path that leads to your own peace. You absolutely deserve to be in relationships where you are valued from the start, not just as a backup plan. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.